Thank you guys for your patience. Thank you guys for your patience. I want to start by saying, long live George Floyd, justice for Breonna Taylor, justice for Ahmaud Arbery. Sandra Bland did not kill herself, and trans lives matter. Did you know that despite the history, despite the visibility that we've brought to Justice Island and this gazebo, we'll have to pay $650 to mourn the loss of another unarmed black vessel brutally murdered by the people sworn to protect and serve us. Burn down the wall. Elijah McClain was choked until he threw up. He was sedated until he went into cardiac arrest and died. Elijah McClain was guilty of nothing other than being black. In November of 2019, the system investigated itself and once again came to the conclusion that it did nothing wrong in his case. Sadly, the system was right in its conclusion. It is absolutely right in the fact that it is working as intended when it comes to the destruction of black lives and the swift exoneration of those responsible. Justice cannot be assured when the police continue to investigate themselves. Last year, Fargo PD shot Tyler Alexander Patel in the eye with a pepper ball. They then investigated themselves and found no wrongdoing. A community seeking change was denied justice. On May 30th, the former Deputy Chief Osmundson would appear in plain clothes, beer in hand, violating the lawful order to disperse, violating the 10 o'clock curfew, and full-on inciting a riot when he shouted, "F the police." Fargo PD would once again investigate itself and find no wrongdoing. Despite PIO Schindel-Decker in constant communication with Osmundson, despite Lieutenant Vincent, Deputy Chief Anderson, Deputy Chief Renner, and even Chief Todd communicating with the former Deputy Chief. The communication between Chief Todd and the former Deputy Chief Osmundson became so rapid that at 10:40 p.m., the two officers responded to each other within the same minute, meaning that their responses were seconds apart. Yet, when I sat down with Chief Todd, he could barely recall anything after 8:30 or 8 o'clock when they began gassing people. He could not recall anything beyond that. We can now confirm through our records requests that Chief Todd would go on to call Osmundson at precisely 11:55 p.m., which corroborates what the former deputy chief told us in a recorded conversation, that at that time, close to midnight, Chief Todd would give him a call, letting him know that it's been a long day and he could go ahead and take it off. This is despite the public and internal affairs investigation, and that they weren't really aware of what occurred. Please keep in mind that the communication between the two at 11:55 p.m. occurred after the curfew. It occurred after the lawful order to disperse. Chief Todd claims he only remembers texting Osmundson around 8 p.m. Despite one of the DCs calling Chief Todd directly to ask if he was aware Osmundson was in the crowd. Despite consistent communication with the former deputy chief, including detailed descriptions and even picture messages. Chief Todd claims that it wasn't until the next morning that they became aware of how involved Osmundson was. Chief Todd is on record stating that because civilians committed similar acts, the deputy chief, the former deputy chief, should not be charged. Does Chief Todd not find issue in giving complete autonomy to an officer and then holding him to the same standard as a regular civilian? Sickening and inexcusable is how you describe the actions of the brave officer who made the public aware of Osmundson's crime. You blame the email on emotion. Thugs and domestic terrorists is how you described members of the community you were sworn to protect and serve. Again, you blamed it on emotion. How can a chief who cannot hold himself or will not hold himself accountable hold anyone accountable? There is a story that needs to be told today, and it once again involves the Fargo Police Department and their actions. It is not my story to tell. I am going to have the individual step up to tell the story, but what it involves, again, is the police being allowed to once again investigate themselves. I'm going to have them come up and tell the story, and then I will follow up with additional information, not necessarily, additional information, context, and insight as well. But I really think it's important that you hear it from this young man's mouth first. So we will step aside and let him and his family step forward now.
My name is Larry Pope, and I was walking out of my girlfriend's house when I had two officers stop me and ask me where was I going, where was I coming from, and why do I have a string bag on. I asked the officers what's going on. They said nothing, we're just going to search your bag. I told them, if you guys do not have a warrant, I'm sorry, you guys cannot do that. One officer proceeded to yank the bag off of my back while the other decided to pat me down. They then, as they're going through my bag, grab keys out of my bag and say, we're confiscating these since these are not yours. I said, no, these are my girlfriend's only house keys, and I have the keys in my hand that they tried to confiscate from me. They then proceeded to do what they were doing, going through my bag. I had 4 Gatorades, and I asked them, why are you guys doing this? They told me to shut up and put my hands up. And I have a battery in my chest for my epilepsy, and my battery started to go off. And they said, stop doing that with your voice. So then I got scared and started to proceed to sit down. They then yelled at me to get up, and they proceeded to give me my stuff back. And then I asked them again, why did you guys do this? And they said, I look suspicious because only thugs wear string bags.
What the 2 Fargo police officers involved did was an illegal stop and detainment, an illegal search and seizure of person and property, and they also did not run his background in order to keep this under wraps unless they had found something. This was a violation of this young man's constitutional rights and also considered racial profiling. And where have we heard the word thug used before? By Chief Todd himself. Where have we heard racial profiling corroborated before? By the former Deputy Chief Osmundson himself in an interview with the Forum. We reached out to the Fargo Police Department regarding this matter. This was on about the 23rd or the 24th. At that time, we were advised, we provided them with precise details on location, date, and time. I'm pretty sure they understand how to track the movements of their officers. It is 2 weeks later, and we still cannot get a confirmation on who the officers are, And if this occurred, it's basically been radio silence. We reached back out yesterday and asked for an update, and we were told that they need additional time. Looking at the previous investigations of themselves and the results, we are not confident that Fargo PD can perform a just investigation of themselves. If a tax accountant is accused of tax evasion, that tax accountant cannot perform a forensic accounting of their own books and properly determine that they did not commit a crime. It would require an outside body. And at this time, we are once again asking for an outside body to step in on this investigation. Before the start of this, I shared some screenshots with members of the media. I want to kind of share a little bit of the insight between the former Deputy Chief Osmondson and inside of the Fargo Police Department. All right? The former Deputy Chief states, things got hairy for a few minutes. PIO Schindeldecker stated that. He then states, I'm embedded back by tough crowd by pounds. PIO Schindeldecker responds, okay, age groups. He responds really fast, 25 to 35, and shortly after, PIO Schindeldecker states, Mahoney wondering, which suggests that the information provided by Osmondson, 25 to 35, regarding the demographic of the age groups, may have and most likely was sent to Mayor Mahoney himself. Crowd going south in alley, black on black, tossed out a troublemaker down the alley, good guy taking action. Those were Osmondson's words. Schindeldecker states, okay. So to believe at that time, when he states that he was embedded, that they did not know what he was doing or wasn't aware, is completely wrong. I have another text message here between Deputy Chief Osmondson, Deputy Chief Renner, Anderson, and also Chief Todd. It states here, the ramp at 3rd Avenue is, so Osmondson's provided intel. A handful ran up the stairs on US Bank ramp, maybe can throw rocks from the open floors on 5th Street and 4th Ave. Chief Todd responds to Osmondson, the ramp at 3rd Avenue. Within a minute, Osmondson responds, whoops, 3rd. Chief Todd responds in the same minute, did that just happen? And Osmondson responds, yes, 5 minutes ago. 8 individuals didn't see backpacks, looked like they ran for fire extinguishers. Walked Broadway 200 block to 600 block, no damage and no one hanging. Getting to my car to charge phone a bit. He then states again, looked like 2 guys grabbing rocks, west side of True Green, maybe around bike shop if you have a Rover. One had white t-shirt around head. 3 minutes ago. All of this information is being fed directly to the chief himself, who is responding. I ask once again, how was this not authorized? And how did they not know of his plans? He never made any plans. It's just properly worded in order for them to skirt accountability. What he did in his autonomy was on a whim. They knew the entire time. They did not discourage it. They did not tell him go home. They did not call him and say, what are you doing? Get out of here. They took the information. They worked with it. And when he got caught, he was able to resign and is now set to make $113,000 a year from taxpayers after committing what we believe to be 4 crimes, and he will not be prosecuted. It is not okay for Chief Todd to continue to be the gatekeeper of prosecution. This information should be forwarded to somebody an individual body, an impartial body that can take the information and make an informed decision. If we cannot get justice in this case, how can we get justice in this case? We are calling for Mayor Mahoney, as he creates his budget, to include body cameras for every single member of the Fargo Police Department's law enforcement so that we can record their engagement with people of the community. Had they had body cameras, we would know precisely what happened during this incident. We didn't. Are we to believe those two officers went rogue as well? When they're mentioning similar words that the chief is mentioning himself? Are we to believe that this is a one-off when they continue to do this? It is clear that it is time for new leadership within Fargo PD. OneFargo is also asking to be included in the selection process of the next chief of police for the Fargo PD. We want reform. We would like to see the former deputy chief's arrest records and how they compare when you align it with demographics to see how bad the racial bias affected his arrest. We thank you guys for coming out today. Little Larry, as he is known, would actually like to take a few questions from the members of the media. We're going to allow him to take a few questions. Please keep in mind that he does have health issues, and so we'll limit them to just a few questions. After that, we will be done. I will be sharing with you guys a full list of our records requests, including the confirmation of the 11:55 p.m. call, as well as a detailed record of their communications between Fargo PD and the former deputy chief. We are asking the members of the media to do their jobs in sharing this with the public at large. Please. We need you guys just as much as you need us. Up to this point, we've basically done a majority of the work. When we hand this off, we're asking that you guys do your job as well. And with that being said, we'll invite Larry and his family to take a few questions, and we'll close it out from there. Thank you guys for coming.
Can you spell your name, Larry?
LARRYPOPE.
How old are you, Larry?
I am 19 years old.
Were you surprised at what happened that day? Did it take you just completely aback?
Yes, it did. My parents moved me up here from Florida to get me away from things like this that would occur. And to be out here my whole life, I've never had one issue until I came to Fargo and leaving my girlfriend's apartment is when I got stopped. I was scared, I was nervous, I didn't know what was happening. Like I said, I have a battery in my chest to keep me from having my episodes, and they didn't want to acknowledge that. I have a tattoo of it, it was showing. All I was wearing was black pants and a blue button-up shirt, and they thought I was a thug.
How long have you lived in Fargo, and does your girlfriend live in Fargo, West Fargo?
I've lived in Fargo for 2 years now, and my girlfriend does live in Fargo. She lives in South Fargo.
So going back to kind of this event, do you know what time this happened and kind of how it played out?
When I was going to work, I was leaving her house around 1:30 p.m.
In the afternoon?
Yes.
What were they doing there? What were you doing?
I was leaving my girlfriend's house to get ready to go to work, and they were doing their normal rounds, making sure no one was parked in the circle, like the apartments have asked them not to do, and that is when they stopped me.
Did you ever get their names, officers' names, anything like that?
No, I was too scared, I was frightened, and I didn't know what to do.
You said it was 2 officers?
2 officers.
2 men?
Yes.
What did your parents tell you after that?
I messaged my mom when I got to work, and she asked me if I was okay. I told her yes, I'm still a little shaken up from it all, I'm just going to try and do my job at work and hurry up and get home. And later that night, my mom and my dad called me and they asked me what happened, and then I told them the story.
So how did you meet Wes and Fargo One, and how did they get, I guess, word of your story?
Wes is actually a family friend of mine, and he has been a huge help. He has kept me updated on everything that's going on, and I appreciate him so much, and Fargo One for everything that they have done.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And just to finish off at this time, at the least, we're asking Fargo PD to identify the 2 officers involved. At the least, we should have something. They should give the community something to start with. Because at this time, we have absolutely nothing. And so 2 weeks gives them the time to prepare themselves, to do whatever they need to do to make sure that they end up on the right side, just as they've done before. So we hope that the community at large, as well as the media, can go and ask some questions so we can at least get some answers. We'd like to know who the 2 officers were that was involved in this incident. The minute they identify those 2 officers, they then have to verify the stop and frisk, the search and seizure of property, and the story starts to fall apart from there. So we need them to give us something, and we need to give them need them to give us something soon. We don't plan to wait. And if we have to march and protest for answers, then that's exactly what we'll do. Thank you, guys.
Just to be clear, this was the June 23rd, 24th, you said, that this had happened?
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay.
Or which day was it?
I believe it,
I,
I can look at my
23rd.
phone.
I spoke with them on the 24th, so it happened on the 23rd.
23rd, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
And you shared those conversations with...
Yeah, I had them take some screenshots.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Did you send them to Chris or anything?
I'm actually going to send out the full.
Oh, if you
gauntlet.
did that, yeah.
Yeah. But I just wanted you guys to have this just to start in case you wanted to post it
Yeah,
or share
that
it.
might be what I do.
Did Chris ask for them?
Chris who?
Keegan?
Um,
All right, you made the request.
oh, we have a good working relationship.